Hey, you're tuned into the deep dive. Let's be real, keeping things running smoothly in trucking these days, it feels like navigating a constantly shifting load.
Yeah, it really does.
You've got regulations changing, tech moving super fast, the economy,
Yeah,
it keeps us all on our toes.
for sure. It's a lot to keep track of. And like our friend Hervey from Life as a Trucker always says, you really got to see these things from all sides to, get the full picture.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing today.
Right. We've pulled together stuff from all over the industry for this deep dive. Legal talk, the whole EV buzz,
Yeah.
that never-ending parking
But
problem.
forget the money side, the economic indicators.
Oh, yeah, definitely that too. The goal here is pretty simple, really. We want to give you the clearest possible view of how all this stuff connects and, maybe more importantly, how it's actually shaping your life out there on the road.
Okay, let's jump right in. First up, the legal maze. The American Trucking Associations, the ATA, they just had their legal forum.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know what you might be thinking sounds like a snooze fest, right?
Ah,
Lawyers talking shop.
yeah, maybe. But this meeting, it's actually kind of ground zero for understanding the legal headaches hitting trucking right now. You've got legal experts, policy people, industry insiders.
So why now? What's driving this focus on the legal side?
Well, a big part of it is the rise in these super high stakes lawsuits after accidents. People call them nuclear verdicts.
Right, those huge payouts.
Exactly. And then you layer on the ongoing confusion about who's an employee and who's an independent contractor. Think about California's AB5 law.
Oh yeah, that definitely stirred things up, reclassifying lots of drivers.
It really did.
Yeah.
And you've got this patchwork of federal rules, state rules. It makes for a really challenging legal scene. So the ATA is trying to get ahead of it, figure out strategies.
Okay, and this is where we see those different viewpoints Hervey talks about, right? Because who's at the table matters. The
Yeah.
big carriers, what are they looking for?
Well, generally, they're looking for protection from those huge verdicts, finding ways around legal gray areas. But, there's some chatter that the solutions they favor might end up shifting more liability onto drivers themselves.
Okay. What about the smaller guys? The small fleets, the owner-operators?
Yeah, they're in a tough spot. They're facing the same rising legal costs, the same insurance hikes, but they don't usually have the deep pockets to fight long court battles or just absorb massive premium increases.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Some pretty vulnerable.
Definitely. And then you have the legal experts themselves. Some of them actually admit the system isn't always clear or even fair, especially that whole classification thing. They'd like to see clearer, more consistent rules everywhere.
So for you, the driver listening, it sounds like just a lot of uncertainty.
Pretty much. Is it about your status, employee benefits versus contractor risks? Or just feeling, left hanging after an accident, even if it wasn't your fault? These are the things that don't always grab the headlines, but they matter hugely.
Absolutely. Okay, let's shift gears. Let's talk about something generating a ton of buzz. Electric vehicles. EVs.
Right, big topic.
California's got this plan banning new gas car sales by 2035. And Congress is even pushing back on that rule. Now, long-haul trucking might seem far off.
Yeah, it feels like it's a ways away for the big rigs.
But could there be a chain reaction here?
That's the key question. Even if Class 8 diesels aren't the immediate target, this California rule and the chance other states might copy it could have real knock-on effects down the line.
Okay, so break that down. What could it mean for a trucker just doing their daily runs?
Well, you could see a slow phase out of diesel trucks, starting maybe with smaller stuff first, like box trucks and vans. That might actually bump up the value of used diesel rigs for a while.
Interesting.
But longer term, there's definite pressure, especially on independent drivers and smaller fleets, to eventually invest in electric trucks, which right now at least are pretty expensive.
Yeah, the cost is a huge factor, and the different perspectives here really show the complexity, don't they?
They absolutely do. California regulators, they're framing it as vital for public health, for the climate.
Makes sense from their view. But what about drivers?
Well, veteran drivers, especially long haulers, they raise really practical points. What's the real world range? How reliable are they in extreme weather? And that upfront cost is always a big one.
And small fleets probably echo those cost concerns.
Exactly. They worry about affordability. And even the EV supporters, the ones who are excited about this, they admit the charging infrastructure just isn't there yet for widespread commercial use. It's a major gap.
Speaking of EVs, Tesla's making some bold moves, right? With the Tesla Semi.
Oh, yeah. Very ambitious plans. They're talking mass production, like 50,000 units a year by 2026. They're even building a new factory specifically for it.
50,000 a year. That's a lot of electric trucks potentially hitting the roads.
It really is. And if they hit that target, and if that claimed 500-mile range fully loaded actually works in the real world,
Big ifs.
very big ifs. But if it does pan out, it could seriously change the game. Think about lower fuel costs, maybe less maintenance.
Yeah.
That could shake up freight contracts, even push new regulations.
Okay, but what's the word on the street? What are truckers actually saying about the Tesla Semi? I bet there's some skepticism.
You are spot on. Healthy skepticism is probably the right term. Seasoned drivers, the ones running long hauls through mountains, deserts, snow, they need to see proof. Hard proof that these things can handle the daily grind.
And fleet owners.
They're looking at practical stuff, too. Where do you get them serviced? Are there enough charging stations along major routes? Things like that.
But maybe some optimism for shorter routes.
Yeah, you do hear that more from local and regional drivers. For them, maybe a 500-mile range is perfectly fine, even great. It really shows how these changes probably won't hit everyone the same way or at the same time.
Makes sense. Okay, let's move to something every single driver deals with daily. Parking. Or the lack of it.
Ah, yes. The parking crisis.
Charlotte, North Carolina just launched a new truck parking app. It's supposed to help drivers find legal spots, gives real-time info, even user reviews. Sounds helpful on the surface.
It does sound good, yeah. And it's trying to tackle a problem that's just persistent. We all know the national parking shortage is a massive headache. The FMCSA calls it a top safety issue.
So the app's idea is to make finding those spots easier, help with HOS compliance, maybe cut down on the stress.
That's the goal. Reduce that last-minute scramble, hopefully.
So is it working? Are drivers finding it useful?
It seems like a mixed bag so far. Some drivers, especially those who've used similar apps before, they appreciate any tool that makes life a bit easier. Knowing if a spot is actually open before you drive miles out of your way, that saves time, saves fuel.
Right. I sense a but coming.
Yeah, but there's this strong feeling that, an app can't magically create parking spaces that don't exist.
Right, if there are only 2 spots and 10 trucks need one.
Exactly. The app just tells 8 drivers very efficiently that they're still out of luck.
That's a great way to put it. So the industry view is probably similar. Apps are okay, but not the solution.
Pretty much. Small fleets might see it as a decent backup plan. City officials obviously promote it as progress. But groups like OABIDA, they're clear. It's a tool, maybe a helpful one, but it doesn't solve the fundamental problem. We need more actual parking spaces.
Which leads us perfectly into the next point. The Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act. It's back on the table.
Yes, and this is really important. This bill isn't just talk. It proposes serious money, like $755 million, specifically to build new truck parking and expand existing spots along federal highways.
$755 million for actual spots. That sounds significant.
It is. And it also talks about needing better real-time info on parking availability, which theoretically could link up with apps like Charlotte's down the road.
Okay, so why might this attempt actually succeed where others maybe haven't? What's different this time?
Well, a few things look promising. One, it apparently has support from both Democrats and Republicans in Congress. That's huge.
Bipartisan support is always good.
Definitely. Two, it's backed by both OOIDA and the ATA. Getting those two groups on the same page for something like this, that's noteworthy.
Wow, okay. That is unusual.
Right. And finally, it kind of fits in with the bigger push for infrastructure spending that's already happening, which might give it a better shot at actually getting funded and implemented.
So what's the vibe from drivers? Cautious optimism? Hope?
I'd say cautious optimism is a good description. Veteran drivers, they've heard promises before. They'll believe it when they see the new pavement.
Fair enough.
But small carriers, they're hopeful it could ease the pressure of paying for expensive private lots. Cops generally like it because it could mean fewer trucks parked unsafely on shoulders. And for new drivers, it could take away a major source of stress right off the bat.
So the app helps with knowing where spots might be, but the act is about actually creating the spots.
Precisely. The app tackles information, the act tackles infrastructure. You really need both, but the infrastructure part is definitely the more critical long-term fix.
Got it. Okay, one last shift. Let's look at the money side, the economics. We hear about transportation stock earnings reports. Why should a driver who's focused on getting the load delivered care about Wall Street stuff?
That's a really good question, and the answer is Those earnings calls, they're like little windows into the overall health of the industry.
How so?
Well, even if you don't own stock, what the big carriers report about their fuel costs, driver turnover rates, the freight rates they're getting a spot in contract, and even their hiring plans, that tells you a lot about what's happening on the ground. It can give you clues about what might be coming.
Okay, so when we hear analysts talking about rate compression, meaning rates are getting tighter, that's a signal about the financial climate.
Exactly. If the big companies are reporting lower profits or they sound worried about the future, it might mean freight demand is slowing down or their costs are rising.
And that can trickle down to drivers.
Absolutely. It could mean fewer loads available or downward pressure on the rates you get paid. On the flip side, if companies are doing really well, reporting strong profits, maybe that signals room for expansion or hopefully potential for better pay down the line.
Are there specific companies whose reports are kind of like bellwethers, indicators we should watch?
Yeah, definitely. Companies like Knight-Swift, J.B. Hunt, Werner, Old Dominion, they're often watched closely for different parts of the market.
Like what specifically?
Okay, so Knight-Swift's logistics arm might tell you about the brokerage market. J.B. Hunt. Their intermodal numbers give clues about how freight is moving between trucks and trains. Werner's hiring figures could signal shifts in the driver supply. And Old Dominion, being big in LTL,
Less than truckload.
right, LTL, their volumes can give you a sense of regional economic activity, kind of smaller business health.
It sounds like reading these reports also requires looking from different angles, just like everything else we've talked about.
Totally. An investor might just see the bottom line, maybe miss the industry specifics, but a small fleet owner, they might use those reports to see how they stack up against the big guys, or guess how shippers might react to the market.
And for lease drivers.
Yeah, for lease drivers, hearing phrases like improving efficiency or asset-light strategies could be a sign. It might mean the carrier is thinking about shifting how they use trucks, maybe relying more on independent contractors, for example.
Wow. Okay, so that brings us full circle. We've covered a lot: legal hurdles, the EV shift, parking woes, economic science. It can feel like a lot to juggle.
It is a lot, no doubt, and that's exactly why seeing how these pieces connect, how they form a bigger picture, is so important. The regulations impact the truck you might drive. The tech, like EVs or apps, offers possibilities, but also, uncertainty.
And the infrastructure, like parking, directly hits your daily life, your safety.
Right, and the economy underlies it all. Your job security, your pay, it's all woven together.
And getting that full story, like Hurdy says, means looking at all those angles, not just the one that seems most obvious. So what's the main takeaway for everyone listening today?
I think the key thing is this. In an industry changing this fast, managing your time well isn't just about hitting delivery windows anymore. It's also about investing in yourself, in your future.
How so?
Well, think about using some of that off-duty time. Maybe learn some new skills, explore ways to maybe build some online income. Hervey talks about this a lot on lifeosaTrucker.com, and there are resources at retirefromtrucking.com too. Developing skills, even understanding things like AI a bit better, could actually give you a buffer if the economy dips, give you more control.
So the final thought for you, the listener, is really this. Yeah, focus on the miles right in front of you, but also use some of that valuable downtime to look at the bigger picture. Ask yourself, how can you use your skills, your time, to navigate all these changes and build a more secure future in this business?
Exactly. It's about feeling empowered, feeling supported to take those steps and really shape your own path forward.
Well said. All right, thanks for diving deep with us again today.
My pleasure. Until next time, everyone, drive safe and try to stay informed.